Hello there, my name is Linda, also known as Tortajala around the internet. I love creative journaling and all things stationery. Today I want to focus on the Kinbor A6 planner for 2025 that I actually just got in the mail, and one of the things that has been on my mind regarding all the Kinbor planners is if it's Toromoe River paper or not. There seems to be a lot of controversy, and of course, everyone is raving about how affordable the Kinbor planner is and that it might be a Hobonichi dupe. And I don't really think it's a dupe because they are very different. And of course, the quality is very different as well. Of course, many planners are similar because it's really the details that change the main sort of types of layouts. There really are only a handful. But it's great that there are so many options because it means that we have a lot to choose from. So I sort of fell down the rabbit hole regarding the paper and started testing and doing pen tests just left and right all over the place. And I was doing this for my own purposes, so it's crazy messy. But then at the end, I thought it would be good to share it as I introduce to you this Kinbor planner in general, because it really does relate. And I think that it would provide a lot of good information for people if you're thinking about getting this planner or trying it out. So, first of all, let me show you that this planner, it did come in this just sort of plastic packaging in like a bubble mailer, and I bought it off AliExpress. And of course, you have to note that when you are buying off AliExpress, it is an online marketplace with lots of different shops. So you are just buying from one of the stationery shops that have been set up on AliExpress, but there is no official Kinbor shop or anything like that. So it means that there is less information, and most of the listings are also all in Chinese, so it's hard to understand even the description and all of the details that they have included in the listing. So that's just something to note. But let me show you that the planner, I have here the Kinbor A6 2025 dated planner, and it does come with a little leaflet, very reminiscent, I guess, of Hobonichi, and that's why people sort of put them as like together in comparisons and as a dupe. But I really like this big calendar that comes every year. It has like a really big calendar with the zodiac character for the year, the Chinese zodiac character, and on the other side it has like sort of like a beginner's guide type of information. So I do like that. But let's get into the planner itself. There are a couple different versions of designs. There's like an all black version, there's a panda version, and every year I do feel like they come up with different designs, and they also have something that seems like the Hobonichi weeks, and they do have some new entries like A5 versions and stuff. But I always tend to get this A6 version, and I like this red one. And I sort of feel like I want to buy it for like the next 10 years because I want all of the Chinese zodiac characters, basically. So I use this for prompted journaling. So it's really just like a notebook for me more than anything else. I don't really need it to be dated, but there is a reason why I buy the dated one versus, just a random notebook, besides for the actual design itself, which is something that I really enjoy. So this cover is sort of like a textured PVC kind of material on some hard, rigid cardstock, and it has that design. The inside, the starting page just has 2025 Techo, so very, very plain. And it starts out with a spread of yearly calendar overviews. So on the left-hand side, it has 2024 and 2026, and then it has the year that you are on, 2025, with a bunch of like holidays and dates and things, but of course it's all in Chinese, so it might not really be useful to you. And then it jumps right into these sort of like tracker pages for each month. And let me show you a detail where I noticed that they use the red color to highlight all of the Sundays, and it's like a very bold red for the Sundays, and then a lighter red for if it's a holiday. And of course, these are all Chinese holidays, so it might not relate for your purposes depending on what calendar you follow by. And because everything is in Chinese and I don't read Chinese, it's hard to find any kind of official information about the Kinbor planners, but I did measure the grid size and it seems like it's 4 millimeter grid. So you get these linear calendars for the year of the planner, January to December, and then it jumps right into the monthly spreads. So let me show you a closer look at this monthly spread that is a Monday start, and it has, labeling for the month, the year, and of course the weeks are labeled on the left hand side as well, and that same grid format, and again the red coloring for Sundays and for holidays or special events that are highlighted in those mini calendars in the upper left, as well as throughout the whole monthly calendar layout. And there is room all around, like on the left hand side, where the weeks are labeled to obviously add your like monthly list or other type of information that you want to keep on the monthly spread. So it is pretty classic in terms of how this is laid out, but there are those little differences of where there are Chinese characters, where there is gray or red coloring, that type of thing. So you get these monthly calendars for January, February, March, like all the way to December, but there are no extra months before or after. It is just the year of the planner itself. And after these monthly planner pages, you do get one extra spread that says to plan your new year. So, sort of like a start of the year goals, it has the gridded part on the top, and then the bottom has boxes for every single month. So, you can use it for future planning. Then it jumps right into the daily pages. And the daily pages, they basically start each month with like an opening page. And you can see that it does have lines on this opening page instead of the grid. And it has the number of the month, like 1, and it notates the year. And it has like a bunch of stuff written in Chinese. And it seems like it is a quote for every month, but it is very minimal and takes up very little space. Then you get all of the daily pages for the month that have the same sort of templated layout. And I'm going to flip to a spread so that you can see both the left hand side and the right hand side, like 2 daily pages, because it does show that when you see a layout like this, the mini calendar is in the lower right hand side, but only on that side of the spread. And then you have these 2 daily pages. And of course, Sundays, holidays, it has that red color again. But basically, you have I think, 4 millimeter grid, and you have this daily page layout where there is a timed section on the left, and sort of like that invisible line to help you separate the time log section, and then the right hand side grid that is blank so that you can fill in as you would like. And the time, it does have some symbols in it, sort of like sunrise and noon and sunset. So it doesn't have like the whole 24 hours laid out. It's more like a awake hours, but you could extend it yourself and number it in or use the space above and below if you would like. And so you can see that the mini calendar that they include in the lower right, it does have the same red coloring as in the monthly layouts, and the day that you're on will be circled. So all the daily pages have this same type of layout, and you basically go from month to month. So you have that opening page with lines, and then every single daily page, and it keeps going like this for the entire 365 days that you have in 2025. And at the very end, there are some memo pages that are also numbered so that I guess you could create an index or something, but there really aren't that many. The extra memo pages included, they only go up to 17 pages approximately. And you can see here, I did do a pen test, so just it's messy because I was just doing it for myself. But you can see that there is bleed through for where I was like pushing my fountain pen a bit like hard and coloring in like a giant spot. But otherwise, it's really just ghosting and no bleed through, like what you would expect from, a thin type of paper. And I did try again with another fountain pen. And again, if I scratch in like my fountain pen really hard, then it could bleed through. But even with my Pilot Metro with the Iroshiku like ink that is very wet that usually bleeds through on stuff, it's not bleeding through. But of course, there is a lot of ghosting. This is very thin paper. So I don't know if it's Tomoe River, but it definitely performs similarly. And at the end of this planner, it does have these like templated pages, so it is very reminiscent of Hobonichi in the sense that they give you these like extra pages that not everybody might use, but it's like favorites or lists. And of course, everything is in Chinese, so you would have to translate it if you want to use it. There is no English version that I know of. They do have a map as well. You can map your like travels and things, and there's a lot of like extra info. Interesting how this year it also has like this ramen bow thing. So I don't know if it's ramen or noodles or just restaurants. And they do have this like solar terms information, which it seems like they do have in their planner every single year, because the sort of like Chinese calendar is split into like 24 solar terms, and think of it as like farmers almanac kind of info, so they do have that in there. And then the very back page is like the personal info and their branding, and they do have this sort of like seal thing, which is like Hobonichi, but it is doesn't have like a serial number or anything. It's just deco, and that is the whole planner. It does have two bookmarks as well, and the bookmarks do seem like a little bit more hefty and like stronger, I think, than like the Hobonichi Weeks type of ribbon that frays really easily. And it comes in this sort of like burgundy and red color, but I don't know if it changes if you get a different color or design of cover. But I have used Kinbor planners before. I've also used the A5 size that like really chunked up, and I chunked it up so much that I cut off half like of the planner in the end and didn't even use it, but the notebook is still holding up. So I think that the binding and all that kind of stuff is fine. It is not flimsy in any way at all. So I don't think you have to worry about your book falling apart, but I do want to note some quality issues, like there's a misspelling in November in this linear calendar. I didn't check anywhere else, but I didn't see anything pop out at me, but that just goes to show that, there are quality control issues. Even on the front cover, you'll notice that this gold embossing, it is, to me, it looks a little off center, and I don't know if that is on purpose. It looks like a little crooked to me, and I have seen other people share theirs and it's a little off as well, because I just think that their quality control isn't as obviously up to par as like Hobonichi. And if you notice the inside pages, there is a white border around the gridded area of the page, and if you flip through the pages, you can see that that white border, it changes drastically, because obviously when they bound this paper, sometimes it was like a millimeter off here, a millimeter off there, and it is very noticeable when you actually notice it and you're like, whoa, this page is totally off. So of course there are a lot of quality issues where it is not up to par as some of the more expensive planners, but then again, you probably get what you paid for, because this costs way less than many of the other Tomoe River type paper planners out there. And of course, there are a lot of like indie designers, so of course it's going to cost more than like a big manufacturer. So I do want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the Kinbor planner and the company, like the brand itself, because there is an official website like kinbor.net that is like the official website of all of these planners, but I don't know how updated it is, and of course it's all in Chinese. The copyright says like 2022, so I'm assuming it just hasn't been very updated. It's more just something that they put up to represent the brand in general, but it is not like necessarily so living and breathing as compared to like the Hobonichi website, which started out obviously as like a website, online magazine kind of thing. But if you look through their website, you will notice that they have really cool products and designs. They've done licensing with Disney, Sanrio. So it's not like knockoff illegal kind of stuff. It was sort of like an offshoot. Kinbor is a small brand underneath of a really big group, the Guangbo Group, which basically manufactures and exports like worldwide lots of different kinds of stationery stuff. And I think Kinbor is just really like a small piece of the pie. But they do have like a Harvard Business Review article about like their business. I didn't pay to read it, but obviously there are details out there if you try to go and do some internet sleuthing. But Kinbor started in 2015, and since then they have won like design awards and things like that within China. I think just outside the international community, it's harder to find information, and it's not like you can contact them directly. So there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the information. Also, because when people create their listings online just selling the planners, you don't know if they're always, passing on the right information or not. And that's where all of this controversy sort of comes up regarding the paper, or really just confusion, I should say, because people have said that the paper is Bao Xuan, something like that. And you can do an internet search and find out information on it, and people have been chatting about it, and people just sort of don't agree as to exactly what it is and what it means, and if it is like related to Tomoe River paper. Obviously, it is not the same exact paper that Hobonichi uses, because what we do know is Hobonichi uses Tomoe River S paper now, and they actually have a very special order of Tomoe River paper that is specifically made for Hobonichi and their planners. And by the way, it's only 47 GSM, which you can confirm with them, because over time things have just changed, and they obviously are working closely to get the paper to be made for their planner specifically. And of course, there are many other designers out there that make Tomoe River paper notebooks, right? But I don't know how much control those people have when they like order their notebooks, like which Tomoe River paper is it, which batch is it. I don't know if even they know that detailed information, and ultimately it just like seems that they can all be very related, because even the maker of Tomoe River paper, they do have like plants in China, I think. And obviously, a lot of people are working on creating paper that is similar because they want it to be fountain pen friendly, or really to take any types of pens and paper, right? And for it to be as thin as possible because they want to include more pages in a book so that it's more easy to carry and handle for us. So ultimately, after doing all this like researching and that kind of thing, I just realized that ultimately you have to put it to the test, because there are inconsistencies. You might not get the same thing just because it's a different batch. And depending on exactly what pens you're using, what inks you're using, how you plan to use it, it's going to give you different results, right? Like if someone wants a notebook just to play with like inks heavily, it might not perform up to your standards, whereas someone using it as a planner and using like a fine fountain pen, and they're completely fine. So you really just have to put it to the test, and that's sort of what I started to do. So in my experience and testing, I can confirm that the undated Kinbor notebooks slash planners are completely different than the dated ones, and that's why I prefer the dated ones. So I've used the notebooks before, and this is an undated A6, and you would think it's the same thing but just undated, but it is not. The paper feels completely different, and it bleeds through some fountain pen. It just seems like a thicker, sort of like regular paper, whereas the dated planners are more closer to like the Tomoe River feeling type of paper. So it's not horrible, but at the same time, there are like some spots it'll start to feather and just not perform the right way. And sometimes it it's just very inconsistent, like in the Kinbor notebooks versus the dated planners. So there is that difference to note, and that's why I purchased the dated planners. Besides the fact that I also like the design, so that's why I wanted that one. So what I did was I decided to go back and look at my Kinbor A5 because I've gotten the same planner before, but in the A5 size, and it performs very similarly, and this is from years ago, like 2022 maybe or something like that. But that was the one that I chopped in half. So I had all these extra papers, so I just got one, and sometimes I use it as blotting paper. And you can see that there is ghosting, but there is no major bleed through except for where I was like scratching my pen and making a huge blob. But really, even the other fountain pens that I've swatched out there, it didn't bleed through, and there's minimal, ghosting. It's almost like less ghosting than the Hobonichi. I don't know if it's because I only have one page here, but really it performs, fine. So under actual like planner usage or regular journaling, I really don't think it would be a problem. So when you put it to the test, like it just, the planner works fine for the pens that you're going to use. So I don't see that as a major issue in terms of like it being bad, quote unquote bad quality. Again, for the price, I think it seems really good. So then I decided to get my 2023 Hobonichis and just do like the same kind of test to see if there was any kind of difference. So I have the Hobonichi 2023 Day Free, and this is before they supposedly changed to the Sanzen paper. So you can see that it performs very well, what you would expect from Tomoe River paper in terms of how it handles fountain pens and really other pens as well. There's ghosting because it is thin, but nothing bleeds through and it looks fine, and the experience of writing on it is very like smooth in terms of the paper consistency. So the old Tomoe River papers, they seem to perform as expected. So that's sort of like your control. I even have a 2023 Weeks by Hobonichi, so I just did the same thing just to like, you know, out of my own stationary curiosity, did the same thing to see how it would end up. And again, it didn't bleed through. I've done a lot of different pen tests here, but yeah, lots of ghosting, because the Tomoe River paper is very thin, but, no bleed through. So then I took out my 2025 Weeks because I am using that for next year, and I decided to do the same thing to see what would happen. And I really like inked it up on the bottom there just to see like what would happen. But it really only bled through when I was using my stub nib, and it might be because I sort of like pierced through the paper, because again, the paper it's almost like getting thinner and thinner, I feel like. Or maybe like the Weeks traditionally it does like ghost a lot, but still it's good enough quality for the pens that I have and for writing and journaling on a normal basis. I'm not really spreading that much ink under normal circumstances. Just when I'm doing these swatches, it's just you have a tendency to scribble to see what will happen. And I found in my stash really old Tomoe River 52 GSM paper, the loose A4 sheets, and these are like, I don't know, 10 years old or something. So it performs as expected. So if you didn't know the names of like all of these paper brands and things like that, I'm not sure you would necessarily even know that the Kinbor is like, so many times cheaper. They are performing pretty well. And again, if you are on a budget or looking for something just less expensive to use for your planning, I really think the Kinbor planners are a really good deal, even though it has all these, just like Hobonichi has the extra pages and the stuff, but different from Hobonichi, it doesn't have the quotes on every page, so you really do have like the A6 size page to use for your planning or journaling or notebooks and things like that, which is why I do like journaling in these notebooks and using my fountain pens in them. So now I'm going to show you like just a bunch of closer shots of all these pen tests that I did, just if you're curious to take a look, because it might be just a little easier to look if I were to show you pictures. Maybe they're higher quality, hopefully, and you can see like the bleed through of where I might have been pressing down really hard and just inking it up madly, but like under normal circumstances, it really doesn't seem bad at all. And again, it's what you would expect from the very thin paper that definitely ghosts but doesn't bleed through. And normally I use like extra fine or fine pens. I just happen to have a stub nib that I thought I would use for like tiling or something, but I really don't use it as often as I should, I guess. But normally my regular journaling is using extra fine or fine nibs. So I really don't think I'm going to have a problem using any of these, whether it be Kinbor or Hobonichi, even with the new Hobonichi paper. So I'm pretty much okay with everything. And I guess at the end of the day, it's just like what works. If it works for you, then it's okay. It really doesn't matter if it's real Tomoe River paper or not. It's whatever works for you personally. And I think that at the end of the day, that is the only thing that is important. I don't know if you have more information regarding the Kinbor planners and the papers. Please do share below because I would like to like learn more, but I don't read Chinese, so I can't really delve into all of that information if it does exist. Otherwise, all of the discussions online are really people just sort of guessing and discussing and talking amongst each other. There really isn't, I haven't seen like official information from the company itself. But yeah, that's that. So I hope you enjoyed all of that stationery nerdiness about the Kinbor planners and about the paper. And I guess my conclusion is really I don't even care. If it performs the way that I need it to perform, the paper, then I'm just going to get whichever planner I like because I like the design or the cover or for whatever reason and just be fine with it. And that is that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great rest of your day and thank you for watching and supporting me here. And until next time, bye.